Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's get right into this. Today, we're unpacking a concept that most people treat as some vague, mysterious social cloud, reputation. But we aren't going to look at it as just a popularity contest. No, we're breaking down the systems and mechanics of reputation, treating it as a highly mechanical, strategic asset that you can literally engineer and control. This whole breakdown is based on the core principles of Law 5 from the 48 Laws of Power. Right out of the gate, here is a bit of a gut punch for you. People do not interact with you directly, they interact with their belief about you. I mean, that completely shatters the illusion we all walk around with, right? That people see us subjectively. They really don't. They're running a preloaded belief system. Before you even open your mouth, they've already made decisions based entirely on this belief. So here's our roadmap for deconstructing the system today. First, the reality perception filter. Second, the psychology of prior impressions. Third, dynamics of reputation systems. Fourth, avoiding reputation collapse. And finally, the modern reputation trap. Let's jump in. Section 1. The reality perception filter. Think of your reputation as a collective perception system. Basically, it filters all your future interactions by predefining expectations based on the narrative of your past behavior. It's literally a reality filter. Your past actions get compressed into a neat little story, a narrative. And when you walk into a room, that narrative actually enters a split second before you do. It processes and colors exactly how people see you before you even lift a finger. The immense leverage at play here is just stark. A strong reputation acts as a massive force multiplier. It generates automatic trust, or if you're in a highly competitive environment, automatic fear. It just removes all the friction. But a weak reputation, that leaves you with a constant proof requirement. Take a second and think about your own life. Do you have that frictionless advantage where your name alone opens doors? Or are you living the exhausting reality of having to constantly prove your competence from scratch every single time? Moving on to Section 2, the psychology of prior impressions. The crucial point to understand here is that our brains are, frankly, incredibly lazy. They love a good shortcut. Why do the hard mental math when you can just copy society's homework, right? Reputation exploits three massive psychological biases to save energy. First is heuristic trust. People rely on prior impressions rather than doing the heavy lifting of real-time analysis. Second is confirmation bias. When you do something new, people automatically interpret it to match whatever reputation you already have. And third, social proof bias. The group's perception heavily amplifies an individual's judgment. If everyone else in the room thinks you're a genius, an individual brain just kind of goes along with it. Which leads us to this mildly terrifying psychological truth. Once formed, reputation filters all future perception, even contradictory evidence. Let that sink in. Once your reputation locks into the minds of others, it becomes a literal filter on their eyes and ears. It's so powerful, it can actually override plain facts. If a known liar tells the absolute truth, nobody believes them. If a reputed genius makes a really stupid mistake, people just assume it's some brilliant strategic move that they don't understand yet.
Section 3. Dynamics of reputation systems.
I want you to picture this sequence as a software loop, just constantly running in the background of society. It kicks off with step 1, your past behavior. Then step 2, collective interpretation. This is where the crowd decides what that behavior actually meant. That crystallizes into step 3, reputation formation. And finally, that feeds right into step 4, future interaction bias, where that reputation acts as a permanent perception filter for literally everything you do next. And then the loop just starts over, reinforcing itself endlessly. Now, within that loop, there are three main dynamics at play. First up is reputation inertia. Reputations are incredibly slow to build and just as slow to change. It's like steering a cargo ship. Second is the amplification effect, where small actions get wildly exaggerated as people gossip and share stories. And third is the lock-in effect, which we touched on. Once established, it heavily biases all future interpretations. Because of this, your ultimate node of power is controlling the narrative of your past behavior. If you can manage how people summarize your past, you literally control your future. And the crazy thing is, this universal mechanism applies across completely different domains. In business, a strong reputation equals faster promotions, while a weak one demands endless validation. In chess, an opponent will completely pre-adjust their strategy before the first move if they know you play aggressively. Just look at how grandmasters would psychologically crumble against Garry Kasparov before he even touched a pawn. In cybersecurity, software systems literally use trust scores to decide access permissions. And in the military, A unit's reputation completely alters enemy response, dictating deterrence levels and targeting priorities. It is a universal law of power. Section 4. Avoiding reputation collapse. So how does this powerful system actually break down? There are specific failure conditions where reputation control just slips right out of your hands. First, inconsistent behavior. It is the absolute fastest way to weaken your credibility. Think of a premium health food brand suddenly getting caught using cheap artificial fillers. The trust just vanishes overnight. Second, your reputation simply becomes outdated. People believe an old version of you. Third, misinformation spreads uncontrollably before you can stop it. And fourth, an overfocus on reputation leads to highly inauthentic behavior, which, let's be honest, people can immediately sense. To prevent that kind of collapse, you need active maintenance protocols. These are your highly actionable counter strategies. You absolutely must maintain behavioral consistency over time. That is non-negotiable. You have to aggressively correct misinformation early before that amplification effect we talked about kicks in. You've got to consciously align your visible actions with the perception you actually want. And crucially, avoid sending contradictory signals across different contexts. Like being a tyrant at work but a total pushover at home. That just confuses the narrative. So, the absolute critical warning I have for you here is this collapse condition. When your behavior becomes too inconsistent to maintain a coherent narrative, the whole system crashes. People just can't predict you anymore. And when they can't predict you, they lose that cognitive shortcut we mentioned earlier. When they lose the shortcut, they stop trusting you entirely. And that brings us to Section 5, the modern reputation trap. So, you might be asking yourself, is reputation just image obsession? A lot of self-help and traditional power literature treats reputation like it's purely about PR, obsessing over every little detail of your image. But honestly, that is a trap. It's a highly superficial way to look at it, and it perfectly sets us up for the ultimate plot twist of this explainer. The modern reality is much more nuanced than just good PR. Reputation is a probabilistic bias. It's not an absolute truth. We aren't completely helpless prisoners to our reputations. If you have a bad reputation, or maybe someone else has an incredibly good one, strong, direct evidence and context can still temporarily override that filter. Individual interactions and hard facts still matter. You can break the bias. You just need the evidence to be strong enough. Which builds to our single most critical takeaway today. The strongest reputation is not a controlled image. It is consistent behavior that naturally produces a stable narrative. You really don't have to obsess over micromanaging what every single person thinks. The most impenetrable, bulletproof reputation you can possibly build is simply the natural byproduct of taking authentic, highly consistent actions, day after day after day. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. If people only interact with their belief about you, what exactly is the software running in their heads right now? Take a moment today to actively audit your own reputation system. What narrative is walking into the room before you do? I highly encourage you to take these systems, models, and start applying them to your own life today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.